I was at Checkpoint Charlie and I'd just taken a drug called lithium carbonate, which was very successful. I was feeling ecstatic. I went into the laboratory, which was poorly maintained. It seemed that cleaners were in short supply. A wave of extreme euphoria came over me, accompanied by an urge to grab hold of the laboratory chain, which I wrapped round my arm and swung on it like a monkey. Way-hey-hey-hey-hey-hey, I shouted. The plumbing was appalling. The ball cock came away in my hand and the piston crashed to the floor. I went out of the laboratory and saw my mother. "It would be you, wouldn't it?" she said. "Do you realize you've been and got the man out?" I couldn't see the man anywhere, and we walked out to the front office. "I wouldn't be at all surprised if the bill for the damage you did in that laboratory is going to be sent to the British government," shouted my mother. "Not only that, the whole episode is likely to get into the papers." My mother came out into the street when I was about to set off for America. She picked up 2 carrier bags, intending to throw them onto a skip. She also pulled out a book which was part of J.R.R. Tolkien's trilogy, The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien, she exclaimed at the top of her voice. "What does a grown girl like you want to read Tolkien for? All he ever wrote about was pixies." She continued to rant, her loud carrying voice reverberating down the street, whose inhabitants pulled aside their lace curtains in abject curiosity. "You won't be eccentric in America, will you, darling?" boomed my mother. "Because if a girl's eccentric, the person to be blamed for her eccentricity will be her poor, wretched mother." A caretaker, trying to show my mother and myself, came to unlock a door leading to a Rococo museum. He was still only half awake and was holding a considerable number of keys. This was in Cologne. The young man in lederhosen showed us into one massive high-ceilinged room after another. The walls were richly painted and covered with ostentatious gold fretwork. The ceilings showed a bombastic display of plump, purple-buttocked cherubs tweaking lyres against a background of fluffy white clouds. God knows why my mother wanted to see all this crap, I thought. "There is one last room for me to show you," said the young man in lederhosen aggressively. He took us into another immense room which had not been maintained for many years. The fretwork on the walls was covered with dust, which caused my mother to clear her throat loudly. As she continued to clear her throat, particles of dust fell to the floor from the walls. The windows were filthy. There was a pile of rubble on the floor in the center of the room and a substantial hole in the ceiling. "I say, this beautiful Rococo room could do with a bit of restoration." "What?" said my mother, her voice raised. The young man in lederhosen became overtly hostile. "I am afraid it is completely beyond repair. It was bombed by the British. Isn't it a shame?" My mother, a fervent patriot, had always despised Germans. She lost her temper. A shame, she bellowed. "If it hadn't been for what the British did during the war, you would now be living under Hitler's and Eva Braun's children." She continued, "Perhaps you wouldn't consider that to be such a shame after all." What? The young German in lederhosen whitened dramatically. I was terrified he was going to be sick. He turned on his heels and raced out of the museum, putting as much distance between himself and my mother as he possibly could.